In recent days, a wave of emotions has been running through the hearts of people who have always admired and respected Pastor Tony Evans. For years, his words have touched millions, and his presence has been a source of inspiration for countless families. People look up to him not just as a preacher, but as a father figure, a mentor, and someone who always carried light into dark places. That is why whenever something happens in his personal life, it does not remain a private matter. It becomes a moment that impacts everyone who loves him and his family. Today, however, the atmosphere feels heavier than usual. His wife has finally spoken out, and what she has shared is not easy to accept. It is something that pulls at the heart and reminds us how fragile life really is. When news like this comes out, it does not only belong to the family, it becomes a collective grief for the church, for the followers, and for the many who have been strengthened by the Evans family's ministry. And now, as we look at the reality of what has been confirmed, we realize that this is a time where words fall short and emotions take over. Pastor Tony Evans has been a respected voice in the Christian community for decades. His ministry has crossed boundaries of culture, age, and background, reaching people in every corner of the world. From his powerful sermons to his countless books and teachings, he has always stood as a guiding light for those searching for answers in life. His words carried not just knowledge, but also compassion and hope, qualities that made people feel safe and uplifted whenever they listened to him. For many, Pastor Evans is not just a preacher behind the pulpit. He is a man who has dedicated his entire life to service. His leadership has inspired churches across the nation, and his commitment to building strong families and strong faith has touched hearts in ways that words can hardly describe. Through challenges and victories, he has remained grounded, showing everyone what it means to trust God fully. But behind this public figure, there is also a husband, a father, and a man who has always leaned on the quiet yet strong support of his wife. While he has stood at the forefront of ministry, she has been the one holding the family together, silently carrying the weight that no one else could see. Their journey together has been a true example of love, faith, and endurance. And it is within this journey that the sad news has now emerged, leaving everyone deeply moved. While Pastor Tony Evans has always been the visible face of the ministry, his wife has quietly carried a role that was no less important. She has been the strength behind the scenes, the one who held everything together when no one else was watching. For years, she chose to stay away from the spotlight, letting her husband shine while she carried the daily responsibilities of family and church life. Her silence was never weakness. It was a sign of her humility and her deep dedication to the people she loved. What most people never realized was the weight she silently bore. Supporting a man of such great responsibility meant that her own sacrifices often went unnoticed. The long nights, the endless prayers, the emotional struggles, she carried them quietly, never letting the world know what battles she was fighting in her heart. While the congregation saw a strong pastor leading them, at home his wife was the one giving him the encouragement and courage to stand tall. Now, as she has finally stepped forward with her own words, it becomes clear that her journey has not been an easy one. The struggles she endured were real, painful, and hidden from public eyes. And while she never wanted to burden anyone with her private pain, the truth she has now revealed shows just how much she has carried on her own shoulders for so long. After so many years of silence, the moment finally came when Pastor Tony Evans' wife decided to speak openly. Her voice carried a mixture of strength and sorrow, and her words immediately touched the hearts of everyone listening. With a heavy heart, she revealed that their family has been going through a deeply painful season, one that they could no longer keep private. She explained that Pastor Evans has been facing serious health challenges, struggles that have quietly been part of their lives for some time. Her statement was not filled with dramatic words, but with raw honesty. She spoke of the sleepless nights, the quiet tears, and the faith that kept them moving forward even when hope seemed distant. For her, sharing this truth was not about seeking sympathy, but about inviting the community of believers to stand with them in prayer. She reminded everyone that even spiritual leaders are human, that behind the sermons and the public appearances, there are moments of weakness, pain, and battles unseen. The news came as a shock because no one expected it. Pastor Evans has always been seen as a man of strength, energy, and wisdom, but now the reality is different. His wife's confirmation left many in silence, some in tears, and all in deep reflection. In her own words, she admitted that this journey has tested their faith, but she also expressed that they continue to hold on tightly to God's promises, trusting Him to carry them through the storm. When Pastor Tony Evans' wife finally gathered the courage to speak, it was clear that this was not an easy step for her. She had carried this burden in silence for so long, But now the truth could no longer remain hidden. With a trembling yet steady voice, she confirmed what so many had only feared in whispers. Pastor Evans has been facing a serious health battle. It was something their family had been navigating quietly, away from public eyes, hoping for strength and healing. But as the days turned into months, she knew that the time had come to be honest with the people who have always stood beside them. She described how difficult it was to watch the man who had always been full of life and energy struggle with weakness. For decades, Pastor Evans had been the one to comfort others, to pray for them in their darkest hours, and to remind them of God's unshakable promises. But now, those very roles had reversed. It was his wife and children who were holding him up, reminding him that even in moments of weakness, God's strength is made perfect. With tears in her eyes, she admitted that some days were unbearably hard. Nights filled with prayers that seemed unanswered, mornings where hope felt distant, and countless moments where she questioned how much more they could endure. Yet, even in those moments of despair, she said she felt God's presence closest, carrying her through, giving her courage, and teaching her what true faith really means. She also shared that keeping this struggle private for so long was not about hiding the truth, but about protecting her husband's dignity. He never wanted the focus to be on his pain, she explained softly. He always wanted the focus to be on the Word of God. But eventually, she realized that letting people know was not a sign of weakness. It was an invitation for love, prayers, and support from the very community he has spent his life serving. The room where she spoke fell into deep silence after her words. Those listening could feel the weight of her pain, but also the incredible strength she carried in her heart. Her statement was not just news, it was a call for compassion, for unity, and for prayer. And though the confirmation of Pastor Evans' condition was heartbreaking, it also became a powerful reminder that even the strongest among us sometimes need the love and support of others. The news of Pastor Tony Evans' condition spread quickly, and it did not take long for the church community, friends, and followers around the world to respond. What began as a private struggle soon turned into a wave of love and support, showing just how deeply Pastor Evans has impacted people's lives. From the congregation that gathers weekly to hear his sermons, to strangers who only knew him through his books or online messages, everyone felt the weight of this news as if it had happened within their own families. Members of his church were among the first to step forward. Many of them shared how Pastor Evans had been there for them during their own darkest times. Some recalled how he prayed over them in hospitals. Others remembered how his words gave them courage when they were battling their own storms. Now, those very people were determined to give back the same love and strength he had poured into their lives. They organized prayer circles, vigils, and special services dedicated entirely to lifting up the Evans family in prayer. Beyond the local congregation, the response on social media was overwhelming. Thousands of people began posting heartfelt messages, scriptures, and words of encouragement for the family. Hashtags started trending as people from different countries, cultures, and backgrounds united in one cause, to support the man whose ministry had touched them so deeply. For many, it was more than just sending prayers. It was about standing with someone who had stood with them all their lives. Even fellow pastors, leaders, and well-known figures in the Christian community began reaching out. Some publicly shared stories of how Pastor Evans' wisdom had shaped their own ministries, while others spoke about his humility and kindness. Letters, phone calls, and visits poured in, reminding his wife and family that they were not alone in this battle. In moments like these, when the weight of reality feels almost unbearable, it would be easy to lose hope. Yet, what makes this story so moving is the way Pastor Tony Evans' wife and family had chosen to respond. Instead of letting despair take over, they have leaned even more firmly on their faith. She shared openly that this season of hardship has tested, but it has also reminded them of one powerful truth: God's strength is often revealed most clearly when we are at our weakest. She described how every day is a journey. There are mornings filled with uncertainty and nights when tears flow silently, but within those moments, prayer has become their lifeline. She explained that when fear tries to take over, they turn to Scripture, repeating God's promises out loud, letting His words fill the silence with peace. It is not that the pain disappears, but rather that they are reminded they do not walk through it alone. For her, the greatest strength has come from watching her husband continue to hold on to his faith, even as his body struggles. He may be weaker physically, she said softly, but his spirit is as strong as ever. She recalled moments when, despite his own suffering, he still prayed for others, still encouraged his family, and still spoke about the goodness of God. Those moments, she explained, reminded her that true faith is not about ignoring pain, it is about finding hope in the middle of it. The family's faith has also inspired those around them. Church members have shared how seeing the Evans family remain steadfast has deepened their own trust in God. Strangers who only heard the news through social media have written back, saying that this testimony has helped them face their own challenges with renewed courage. What began as a season of sorrow is slowly turning into a testimony of resilience and unwavering belief. Through it all, Pastor Evans' wife continues to emphasize one thing: faith does not mean life will be easy, but it does mean that no storm is too great when God is holding you through it. And in that truth, they are finding the courage to keep moving forward, one prayer, one step, and one day at a time. As Pastor Tony Evans' wife ended her heartfelt words, there was a stillness that lingered. She did not speak with the intention of gaining sympathy. Instead, she spoke with the hope of reminding everyone that life is fragile. Faith is powerful, and love is what carries us through the darkest valleys. With deep sincerity, she thanked the church, the friends, and the countless people from around the world who had already been praying for their family. She said those prayers were not just words, they had become a source of strength, lifting them up when their own strength was fading. Her final message was simple yet profound. She encouraged everyone not to take a single day for granted, to hold their loved ones a little closer, and to remember that even the strongest leaders need support too. "We are walking through a hard season," she admitted softly, "but we believe God is still with us, guiding us step by step. Your prayers, your love, and your encouragement mean more than you will ever know." With tears in her eyes but hope in her voice, she left the congregation and listeners with a promise that no matter how heavy the storm feels, their family would continue to hold on to faith. She reminded everyone that this is not the end of their story, but just another chapter where God's grace will be revealed in ways they cannot yet see. For those listening, it was a powerful moment. It was more than just an announcement. It was a call to unity, a call to prayer, and a call to remember that even in sorrow, hope still lives. As her words settled in, people were left with both heavy hearts and renewed determination to keep Pastor Evans and his family in constant prayer. And in that silence, one truth became clear: their pain had become a reminder of the strength that faith and community can bring, even in the hardest of times. As her words came to a close, there was a silence that felt heavier than words could ever describe. Pastor Tony Evans' wife stood there not just as a wife, not just as a mother, but as a woman carrying a weight far greater than most could imagine. Her voice trembled, but her faith never wavered. And in that moment, every person listening felt the depth of her pain and the strength of her courage. She reminded everyone that life can change in a heartbeat, that the people we love most, the voices we depend on, can suddenly be silenced by trials we never expected. "Hold on to your loved ones," she whispered through tears. "Tell them every day how much they mean to you, because tomorrow is never promised." The room was filled with quiet sobs as people lowered their heads in prayer. She thanked the community once more for standing beside them, but her final words echoed far beyond gratitude. They were words of surrender, of faith, and of love. "Even in the valley of shadows, we are not alone," she said softly. "God is still here. He has always been here, and He will carry us through."